Hello, I'm Sensei Alex Kakuyo. Thank you for joining me for Dharma Sunday. The title of today's talk is Simone Biles and the Dharma of Quitting. Before we get into that, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you'll be notified when I post talks in the future. Also, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that'd be great too. So the 2021 Olympic Games recently wrapped up in Tokyo, and there were some major highs and lows for the United States. One of the highs being that the men's basketball team, which got off to a rough start, ended up winning a gold medal. One of the lows being that the women's soccer team, which was expected to dominate, ended up having to settle for the bronze. That said, the biggest story to come out of these games arguably had nothing to do with basketball or soccer and everything to do with women's gymnastics, specifically the star Simone Biles, who is credited by many as being the greatest of all time in her sport. To give you an idea of why they say that, I was going to read off some of her accomplishments, but there's a lot here. So just going off her Wikipedia page, it says Biles is also a 5-time world all-around champion, 5-time world floor exercise champion, 3-time world balance beam champion, 2-time world vault champion, a 7-time United States national all-around champion. That's in addition to all of the gold, silver, and bronze medals that she's won at the Olympics, and in addition to the fact that they are literally naming moves after her, because she's the only one who can do them in competition. So, with all that being said, it was very shocking to many people when Simone chose to withdraw from many of her competitions in the Olympics. She did end up taking part in the balance beam, and she won the bronze there, but she didn't do the floor exercise or some of her other competitions where she was expected to dominate, and she withdrew for mental health reasons. It later came out that she had something called the twisties, meaning that she essentially was not able to tell up from down when she was twisting and flipping through the air, which I totally understand. I can't even dive into a swimming pool, much less do some of the things she does. That said, there was quite a bit of a reaction from her withdrawing for mental health reasons, some positive, some negative. So I'll read 2 articles around her decision, and then I'll give the Buddhist perspective on it. I'll start with an article first that comes from NPR. It was written by Merritt Kennedy. It says Simone Biles withdraws from the vault and uneven bars finals at the Olympics. And this is what it says. U.S. superstar gymnast Simone Biles will not compete in the uneven bars or vault individual finals on Sunday after pulling out of the team and all-around finals to focus on her mental health. After further consultation with medical staff, Simone Biles has decided to withdraw from the event finals for vault and the uneven bars. USA Gymnastics said she will continue to be evaluated daily to determine whether to compete in the finals for floor exercise and balance beam. Biles has received an outpouring of support after revealing that she did not feel like she was in a place mentally to compete, was dealing with a dreaded phenomenon known as the twisties. She said later that the support has made me realize I'm more than my accomplishments and gymnastics, which I never truly believed before. Her withdrawal from the vault opens up a spot for another teammate, U.S. gymnast Michaela Skinner. An event specialist will join Jade Carey in the final. We remain in awe of Simone, who continues to handle this situation with courage and grace, and all of the athletes who have stepped up during these unexpected circumstances, USA Gymnastics said. So that's what NPR had to say. Our next article comes from the New York Post, and it's titled, Piers Morgan Slammed for Criticizing Simone Biles' Decision to Withdraw. It's written by Gabrielle Fonrage, I believe that's how that's pronounced. And it goes like this. Piers Morgan criticized Simone Biles' decision to drop out of the gymnastics team finals and for quitting on her team in a new column Wednesday, drawing backlash from fans who said the longtime broadcaster was being insensitive to her mental health struggles. I don't think it's remotely courageous, heroic, or inspiring to quit, Pierce wrote in the column published in the Daily Mail. When you call yourself the GOAT in sport, you can't then quit the moment things get tough or you make a mistake. Something that I'm sure Simone Biles, in her heart, must realize because she's a great champion and great champions just don't do that. On Tuesday, Biles stunned the world when she announced she'd be dropping out of the gymnastics team finals in Tokyo so she could focus on her mental health. And on Wednesday, USA Gymnastics announced that she was also opting out of Thursday's all-around contest. Physically, I feel good. I'm in shape, Biles said of the decision to leave her team, which ended up winning the silver medal in her absence. Emotionally, that kind of varies on the time and moment. Coming to the Olympics and being a head star isn't an easy feat. I feel like I'm also not having as much fun. The Olympics Games, I wanted it to be for myself, but I came in and felt like I was still doing it for other people. It hurts my heart that doing what I love has been kind of taken away from me to please others, or to please other people. Morgan slammed Biles' comments and said the Olympics aren't about fun, nor are they for any individual athlete. You are part of Team USA, representing the United States of America and hundreds of millions of American people watching back home. Not to mention all the sponsors who've paid huge sums to support you, Morgan wrote. And when you quit, you were performing as part of the gymnastics team, not yourself. Twitter users were quick to jump on Morgan's comments and call him out for walking off the set of Good Morning Britain during an argument earlier this year with a co-worker about Meghan Markle, which the broadcaster admitted was wrong, gutless, and cowardly in his column. Fans of Biles said mental health concerns must be taken seriously, and her ability to speak out about them and opt out of the competition or out of the contest was an act of courage. When someone takes their own life, the amount of times you hear, if only they'd reached out, but when someone speaks out about their mental health, you get tweets like this. MadZ_27 tweeted in response to Morgan. I just knew you'd attack Simone like this, James Donnelly added. Have you ever thought that mental health issues has gone on for decades, but because of stigma, taboo, or just scared, it's been kept secret? But now we are more open to discussing the subject, more will open up, and that is inspiring. Adam Forder wrote, kids need to see that their role models are human beings too, while Melly Gilbert noted the sexual abuse Biles suffered at the hands of sicko sports doctor Larry Nassar. She was sexually assaulted over and over again, Gilbert tweeted. She was sexually assaulted and now has her own gym for young girls to protect them. About 2 hours after the column posted, Morgan tweeted a photo of him and Biles and encouraged her to return to the contest. You can either listen to Snowflake Twitter at Simone_Biles or listen to me. You're a great champion, and great champions get back on their feet when they get knocked down, Morgan wrote. So, re-engage in these games, win gold, and inspire with the power of resilience, not resignation. Go for it. So, there we have two views on what Simone Biles did. And my question in all of this, really in anything, is, well, what does the Dharma teach? What does the Dharma say about quitting, about mental health, about our need and desire to please others in the face of our own difficulties? And after looking at the sutras, what I noticed is that quitting, for lack of a better word, is a bit of an Olympic sport in Buddhism. In fact, we have a special name for it. We call it renunciation. And the way renunciation works is that we live in samsara, the saha world, this world filled with suffering. And we as Buddhists have to learn how to deal with that suffering. And there are three categories in terms of how we cope with our suffering. Either one, we accept that it's unescapable, that there's nothing we can do about it, in the case of birth, aging, sickness, death. And we just try to accept it and live with it as best we can. Then there are other types of suffering where we have to do it, but we can do it in a skillful way. So we can't eliminate suffering completely, but we can reduce our level of suffering, right? So this might be with our food choices. This might be with our speech. This might be with our actions, with our livelihood. We have to talk to one another, but we can choose to talk in a way that doesn't cause suffering. We can use this tool skillfully and thus maybe not eliminate all suffering, but we can reduce it by quite a bit. And then finally, we have types of suffering, sources of suffering that we just need to walk away from altogether. Drugs and alcohol, for example, where there's just nothing good about this. It's not required for life. So we renounce it. We quit. We don't do it anymore. The Buddha himself was probably an excellent quitter. He was the first quitter in Buddhism, you could say, because he practiced renunciation with a huge chunk of his life. He was a prince, a member of the Shakya clan, a member of the warrior caste in India. He was said that he was going to be a world-turning monarch and inherit a kingdom. Now, it's important to note what comes with inheriting a kingdom in the time of Buddha. Again, he was a warrior prince, meaning that he was expected to go out and conquer other tribes. So there's lots of killing involved with that, clearly. There's lots of enslavement involved with that, because that's what you did when you won battles in those days. You either killed the enemy or you enslaved them and either sold them off to increase the riches in your coffers, or you took them into your household. Slavery is forbidden in Buddhist practice. Killing is not allowed in Buddhist practice. We accept that sometimes it can't be avoided, but we do everything we can to try and avoid it. So it was clear after the Buddha realized enlightenment that he could either practice a spiritual path or he could be a prince. But he couldn't do both. It was not possible at that time. So he quit. He practiced renunciation towards the things I mentioned previously and walked the spiritual path. And much like Simone Biles, he got different reactions. Some people were very supportive of what he did. They joined his Sangha, they became monks, they became nuns, they walked the path he walked. Others were not supportive. His father was not supportive of the Buddha's decision. He wanted his son to go into the family business. He wanted him to be a world-turning monarch in the same way that he was. And when the Buddha went home after 7 years, after realizing enlightenment, it was not a fun competition that he had, or conversation rather, that he had with his father. In fact, his father said that he was ashamed of him. He was ashamed that his son, that he had raised to be a prince, was out in the streets begging for alms. He was ashamed that his son, who was supposed to be this world-turning monarch, was walking around in robes that were sewn together from rags. Buddha was a quitter. And quitters weren't liked in that day, just like they're not liked in today's society. But he defended his actions, explaining that he'd given up this royal life for something that was better, more life-affirming. That he'd chosen enlightenment. That no, he wouldn't be there to care for his father in his old age, but he could teach his father how to end suffering, not only for himself, but for all sentient beings. And that was worth 10,000 kingdoms in the Buddhist view. So I think of that, and I see some similarities between that and Simone Biles' story. She's not Buddhist that I know of, but the fact is she had a kingdom, so to speak, that she was inheriting, that she's kind of already inherited. She makes millions of dollars from endorsements. She runs her own gymnastics gym. Again, they're naming moves after her, the greatest of all time. And there's pressures that come with that. And then she was in a situation when she got the twisties where her life was in danger. And she had a choice. Do I risk being paralyzed from the neck down, which has happened to other gymnasts? Do I risk getting a career-ending injury, which has happened to other gymnasts? Or do I walk away? And she chose to walk away. And it seems like it worked out. She's still healthy and strong. She still won a medal at the Olympics. Now, I get what people like Piers Morgan are saying. I get the don't be a quitter attitude, okay? I spent 8 years in the United States Marine Corps. You're not allowed to quit in the Marines. Unless there's a bone sticking out of your leg, you're not injured. And there is a place for that go until you drop mentality. There are times when that's necessary. But I would argue that 9 times out of 10, it's not. Simone Biles, for all of her accomplishments, which are more than I will ever do in my entire life, is not a brain surgeon. No one died because of her decision at the Olympics. Okay? She's not a firefighter running into a burning house. So we have to put it all into perspective and remind ourselves that in the end, as incredible as this is, we're talking about sports. We're talking about games. No one should put their life on the line to win a game. Now, again, if this is a situation where you're a doctor saving lives, where you're a service member in the military saving lives, if you're a firefighter running into a burning building, yes, that is the time where we don't quit. That is the time where we go till we drop. But for the Olympics, for a game, it's okay to quit. It's okay to say that's enough. And I think it's important that we recognize that, because in our own lives, we have to ask ourselves, what are the things we're holding on to that we shouldn't? When are the times when we should be a quitter? What are we continuing to do over and over and over again, even though it causes suffering for ourselves and for others, because I don't want to be a quitter, or these people will think bad things about me? Where would we be right now if Buddha wasn't a quitter? Would the world be better or worse if he had gone back to the palace and taken on his princely duties and gone on to conquer other kingdoms, as was his destiny, one of his possible destinies, as foretold by the oracle at his birth? We lose sight of perspective because we have deluded minds, greed, anger, and ignorance. And because of those 3 poisons, we form attachments. And we don't want to let go of things. So we harm ourselves. We harm other people because we want to hold it. We want to keep it for ourselves. But that's not what Buddhism teaches. Buddhism teaches renunciation. It teaches us to look at each one of our desires individually and decide, is this something I need to accept and deal with as best I can? Is this something I need to work with skillfully, or is this something I need to let go? The Buddha let go of everything. He lived his life with 1 bowl, 2 sets of robes. He begged for food in the streets. He had a whole palace to go back to. But he chose not to, because he realized mental health was more important. Enlightenment was more important. spiritual practice was more important than all those other intrigues that the world was trying to foist on him. Simone Biles, when she temporarily walked away from competition, understood that her mental health and physical health was more important than possibly getting one more medal. She has lots of medals. She only has one human life, and according to the sutras, I believe the Brahmasnet Sutra says we only get one every 1,000 kalpas. A kalpa is something like 100,000 years in Buddhism. We only get this one life. So we need to ask ourselves, is this one precious life we have worth risking, worth holding on to whatever we're holding on to? And maybe the answer is yes. Maybe we're going to grit our teeth and we're going to gut it out. But if it's not, if we're causing suffering for ourselves and for others, it's okay to quit. Simone Biles showed us that. The Buddha showed us that. And as we move through this experiment, this laboratory of our life, I'm sure we'll find that there are many times when that's true for us as well. Amitabha.